Hey y'all, welcome to the Coyote Trapping School Podcast, episode number 11. I appreciate y'all following along, watching along, listening along, and I hope we can continue to bring some good, valuable content to you. I think we got a good one today for you. Talking about location. You know, that's one of the biggest questions in everybody's mind is when you start trapping is how do I know where to set traps? And so I'm going to try to break that down a little bit and hopefully maybe show a couple pictures. It's obviously it'll be easier to go out and look, and I'll try to do a little bit more of that this year as I'm running my trap line, show you this is the location I picked and why I picked this specific spot. So try to get a little more in depth in that and hopefully help some of y'all along, and hopefully this will help too. So you know, in my mind I kind of think of location, I break it down into two kind of categories. I think of what I call macro location, so that's just general, like on the landscape. Like if you're looking at an aerial photo and looking at a couple of different areas, you know, picking just looking at an aerial photo and looking at the features on the landscape, this probably be a good spot, this probably be a good spot, and this, and going from there. And then I call, you know, micro location is when I get to that spot that I picked out on the topo or the aerial photo and I look at it on the ground. Yeah, this is a good spot. This is exactly where I'm going to set my trap. So I'm going to approach it from those kind of two standpoints and try to walk you through and hopefully provide a little bit of valuable information around that and around selecting where you set your trap. And you know, I just tell you up front that I don't have a magic formula. A lot of it's just gut, and a lot of the stuff I do in general is kind of making stuff up on the fly. So I don't spend a lot of time picking a location. And I should say I don't spend a lot of time picking a specific location where I'm going to set my trap. I'll get into that in a minute though. So overall, what I'm going to call macro location, like I said, is if I know I've got a piece of property that I got permission to trap on, a new piece of property, I'm either going to ride through it, I'm going to look at an aerial photo, maybe both, and try to pick out some of the key points that I think this is probably worth looking at, this is probably worth looking at. And really what I'm looking for there is I'm looking for intersections and edges. So intersections can be a little bit of both. Intersections can be road intersections, four-wheeler intersections. It could be game trail intersections, and you know where those things intersect with each other, where they intersect. You know, if it's just two roads intersecting, well, that's an intersection. If it's a road and a game trail, that's a little bit of a different intersection. Definitely an intersection that I'm going to check out if it's prominent enough. And then edges, and I'm looking for intersections of edges too. So when I say edges, I'm talking habitat edges. So where a pine plantation meets a hardwood bottom, or where a timber stand meets a soybean field, or you know where a fallow field meets a freshly harrowed crop field, something like that. Where you got, you know, I feel like in general in hunting, trapping, whatever, you know, edges are what I kind of tend to key on and focus on, because I feel like that can kind of narrow down, and in my mind that's kind of the main travel corridor. You know, if you're looking at if you're deer hunting, for instance, or you know, we're trapping coyotes. If we're trapping coyotes, odds are that coyote's not going to walk through the middle of a 500-acre pine plantation if he's going somewhere, if he's cruising. If he's hunting now, he's liable to work his way through that. But if he's going from point A to point B, he's not going to cut through a 500-acre 3-year-old pine plantation. That's going to be a woolly booger. He's going to go along the edge of where that pine plantation meets the creek bottom, because that's going to be, one, it's going to be a good location to potentially hunt, because you've got your two locations coming together, and you've got your younger stand, and potentially an older, you know, your older hardwood stand. So you may have, and there may be a little bit of a gradient to that edge. So you may have the pines, and then you may have a little grassy strip where there was an old fire break or something like that, and then you may have the hardwood, and you know that little grassy strip may be a good spot, you know, to kind of cruise and hunt and cover ground at the same time. But like I said, that's, you know, I key in on those edges, whether I'm deer hunting, trapping, whatever. Those edges are key to whatever I'm doing. So, and there again, I'm looking for intersections of where the main road that goes through the property intersects with the hardwood bottom and the pine plantation. So if I'm looking at an aerial photo and you've got the main road going through the pine plantation. Well, you could set anywhere along that main road going through the pine plantation, but chances are you've got one shot and one animal that's going through there, one coyote that's traveling that road. So you catch them or you don't. But if you move right on down to where that creek, hardwood bottom, and that creek crosses the road, and that pine plantation butts up to that, then you still got your shot at the coyote that's running down the road, but you may also have your shot at the bobcat that's working the edge of that pine plantation, and then the fox that's running down the edge of the creek, or the coon that's running down the edge of the creek. And I wish I was in an area where we had spectacular values for a certain fur, but we don't. So for me, I'm out to catch whatever comes by. Hopefully not a possum or a skunk, but I'm out to catch whatever comes by. I'd rather catch a fox or even a coon than look at empty traps. That's just kind of, I like catching stuff. So that's kind of the idea behind that. Is I had somebody kind of similar situation. Somebody asked me the other day. They sent me a picture of a field with a line run through it, and there's coyote sign up and down this trail going through the field. Where would you set a trap there? Would that be a good place to set a trap? Well, if there's sign there, definitely that could be a good place to set a trap. But my first inclination wouldn't be to set in the middle of the field. My first inclination is going to be to check on each side of that field where that trail comes into the field or goes out of the field. Excuse me. Because like I said, there you got a likelihood of catching the coyote that's running up the center of the field, but you may also catch the red fox that's just slinking along the edge of the field. So that's kind of how I look at that. I'm looking for intersections mainly, and the more intersections, the better. So if I get two wood roads coming together, that's great. If I can get 4 wood roads coming together, or 2 wood roads coming together, and a 4-wheeler trail forking off this way, and a creek bottom going off of this way, the more intersections, the better, because that's the potential for more travel paths crossing and more animals coming through, versus if you're just sitting on one road, that's one travel path, so you've got one shot at something going through there. So that's kind of the way I look at how I try to select locations, looking for looking just on paper now, looking at the number of intersections and what kind of looks good, and trying to make sure that my traps are kind of spaced apart. If I've got 2 good intersections 100 yards apart, I may not set both of them. I may set 3 traps or 4 traps at one and none at the other. But probably if I got 2 good intersections that are 100 yards apart, I can kind of pick out one that I would kind of prefer, and then I'm going to move my other sets half a mile down the road or something like that to try to spread things out a little bit, because I'm trying to cover ground. I'm not just trying to catch all the animals on one piece of property. Excuse me. One other thing, though, in talking about looking at aerial photos and looking at landscape features, one thing that can be important is, I would say, is worthwhile to consider if you encounter it on your trap line, is a major feature on the landscape. And when I say that, I'm meaning like a gas line right of way, power line right of way. A river is always a good one, even like an interstate nearby. Something that's, like I said, a major feature on the landscape, and the thought behind that, and I heard this listening to a Mark June demonstration a couple years ago, and I think I've said it before, but if y'all ever get a chance to go to a convention and Mark June is doing a demonstration, make sure you go to it, because he is very knowledgeable. He's very engaging. He's fun he's not just watching somebody punching a dirt hole set. He's going to get kids involved, and he's going to make you think a little bit and ask some questions. And he's a very good teacher and very good at engaging, keeping everybody engaged. And the information that he presents is not information that he's just kind of speculated on over several years of trapping. This is he's got a wildlife biology degree, and I'm pretty sure he's got a master's. I don't know if he's a doctor or not, but I'm pretty sure he's got a master's. I think that's where a lot of his original work started, was looking at how red foxes, I think specifically, reacted to different scents, and kind of the footwork for his bait and lure business. But he's a wealth of knowledge and research knowledge and study knowledge of his life devoted to catching these animals and pursuing these animals. So, but regardless, I got this information I got this kind of pointer from him in one of his demonstrations. He was talking about the major landscape features like a gas line right of way or a power line right of way. Those provide good avenues for dispersal of young or general dispersal of critters. So the coyotes raise off and their litter of 4. It comes around to winter and daddy's getting restless and looking for love. They're gonna get and run those young out, and those young, some of those at least are gonna have to find new places to go. And so it's a lot easier to catch a gas line right away and travel some miles like that versus trying to pick up a woods road through a pine plantation and another one, and with all the everything that's fragmented up. Excuse me. So I really took that to heart. I thought that was pretty insightful. That if you can key in and find a dispersal corridor, because if you think about it, a lot of what we're trapping probably is a single home range, or if you're lucky, maybe you can get on the edge of 2 home ranges. So at most you're targeting 2 to 6 animals. If you're talking about two family groups. But if you can get in a dispersal corridor where you've got constant movement of new animals coming in and out, that's where you can find locations where if somebody catches 14 coyotes in a location or something like that, because there's a lot of game moving through and a lot of different game moving through. So I thought that was a real interesting and insightful thing to think about, especially if you've got a big power line that runs through your hunt club and that's where you're going to be trapping. That's definitely a place that I would put high on my list of places to check out on the ground. I digress though. So once you've looked at your aerial photo, you've kind of picked out your macro locations. Then you got to get out on the ground and start looking and trying to determine is this a good location? Is that a better location? And of course, the one thing that you always want to look for is signs, so tracks and scat, things like that. And depending on the ground that you trap, that may be easier to come by than others. If you're trapping hard rocky ground, tracks may not be easy to come by, and if a lot of your roads are grown up and real grassy, scat may not be easy to come by. But in general, if you can key in on intersections and multiple intersections, that's going to be a good starting point. And so, like I said, I'll go through and kind of take a ride through of the area that I'm trapping, and kind of just really probably more on gut feel than anything else. I think this intersection is a little bit better, or this one's far enough from my last sets that I think this is a good spot to set. And then you're getting to, all right, you stopped at the intersection, you get out of the truck, where are you going to put your trap? And that's that's the area that, honestly, I can't tell you there's any kind of science or any kind of real theory behind it. The way I do it is, for one, I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it. I'll look around and I'll say, sit there, and I'll set my traps out and go. I don't belabor it. I don't sit there and be like, well, that could be a little bit better. Or one thing that I probably should take into account more will be the prevailing wind direction. So that's one thing that if you can get that in your favor, and if you've got, if the wind, if you're sitting at an intersection and your wind is coming across, your prevailing wind is kind of coming across from right to left, then ideally you're going to want to sit on the right hand side of the road. That way your bait and lure smell is going to drift across and into the animal's line of travel. Also, as you're setting the set, your scent is going to be blown away from the set instead of into the set. I don't give that a whole lot of consideration, but definitely I think it's worthwhile to consider. And then as the animal comes to work the set's blowing, the wind's blowing your scent across, in the direction that you want that animal to work into. So definitely, if you can get in the habit, I think, of watching the prevailing wind direction and trying to use that to your advantage, I think that'll be a big help. And I say that knowing that I am not great at doing that, but that's something I want to get better at doing and get better at paying attention to. So, all that being said, I'll look around and I'll try to pick out a couple of prominent features that kind of stand out to me. And I figure if they stand out to me, they're probably going to catch the eye of a coyote that's coming through. So, like I said, I don't spend a lot of time, but I'll look around and I'll say, well, I kind of like that stump right there and that dirt clod right there, or that grass clump right there, or that little rock right there. And I just try to pick out a couple of things and I go with them. If I find two things, and I'll go with them, and like I said, I don't think twice about it. I try to get on down and get more sets out. That being said, don't be afraid to add something. If you know, very often I'll come to a set location and I'll find one good spot. I know I'm gonna make a set there, and the other's like, well, that would be an okay spot, or I won't hesitate to move a rock into a place or drag a piece of a log out to a place, or I love using T-bone sets. T-bone or a grub stake of just some wool super hot glued to a little dowel. Those are great because you can put that set anywhere you want to, and that gives you your visual attraction, kind of gives you your backing all in one right there. So I really like those, because if I get to a location and I find one good spot but I'm kind of hemming and hawing on another one, I'll just grab a T-bone and say, this is where I want it, and put it in and go. So don't be hesitant about adding a new feature, so to speak, if you don't see something you're liking or you're looking for. The one thing that I will say that I do try to take into account when I'm setting, picking out my specific set location, is I try to look at how the water may travel. So of course, wintertime is usually we get a pretty good bit of rain and weather, and so I'm looking at, is that the lowest spot on the road, because I don't want my trap to be sitting in water all the time, or does that look like it's on a hill, but that's where the water washes, so that's gonna, if I sit there, my trap's gonna be exposed. Every time we get a rain, it's gonna wash out, my trap's gonna wash out. So that's definitely something that I look for and try to take into consideration in order to try to keep my sets working majority of the time. Like I said, other than that, finding some sign, and I would say one thing is, just because you get to an intersection and you think that's a good intersection doesn't mean that's the best spot. It may be a good intersection, but 20 yards off the intersection may be a major game trail, and so you may do better off sitting at that game trail than actually at the intersection itself. But that's, like I said, that's where you've got to just go with your gut, and when you get there, don't be so hung up on, well, this is where the two roads are, so this is where I'm sitting. You kind of look at it, and don't take a lot of time, but take some time to look at it and think through, and see, kind of judge and size up where your best location may be. So I hope I didn't confuse you. I hope that was give you a good starting point for how to pick your location. Like I said, in general, looking for the more intersections the better, and then something and a location wise that jumps out to me, that a feature that's kind of low to the ground that jumps out to me. And that's, I set my traps and go, and like with everything, the more traps that you set, the more locations that you pick, you'll kind of get a feel for it, and you'll start to kind of key in on that stuff as you go, and you won't put so much time in thinking about it. But and then, like I said, definitely keep in mind the major features: power line right away, gas line right away. If you got anything like that, railroad right away on your property where you're trapping, you need to be setting traps there, because that's overall, those are going to be great spots to probably pick up numbers of critters as they're dispersing and traveling about. So hope y'all are hammering it. If your trapping season's in, if you're not, it's right around the corner, so hang in there. I'm hanging in there too. But y'all stay ready, and we'll see you next time. Hey, I just wanted to say thanks for watching, thanks for following, thanks for listening, ever how you're consuming this. And if you want to show some support, I appreciate your support of just watching, leaving comments, and interacting with me. If you want to show a little support and help support the podcast, the YouTube channel, and the trapping endeavors, and us bringing you the content, be sure to go to CoyoteTrappingSchool.com. We've got an online store there where we have some Coyote merchandise. So if you need a Lucky Trapping hat, we got you covered there. If you need a little more luck on the trap line, got some Coyote Trapping School hats, shirts, gloves, bags. We also carry some Minnesota trap line products, baits, lures, and urines. Top quality stuff that I use on my trap line every year, and also sell those in packages. So if you're interested in getting started and you don't really know what baits or lures to use,
You can buy one of the packages that we've got, that I've got kind of pre-selected. That's a great starting point to get out there and start catching game. Also, if you're new to trapping and want to learn more about it, want a clear, concise, and central location to learn how to do it, the Coyote Trapping 101 course that I put together takes you from start to finish, from the bottom up. So far, you know what gear you need, how to set a trap, where to set traps, and how to set your traps, and even what to do after you catch your animal, your coyote, skin it, marketing your furs, and all that. Like I said, all that's in one central location. If you're tired of trying to piece together and part together YouTube videos and forum comments and different things, go to this one central place. Soon we'll be adding different species: raccoon, bobcat, beaver, otter, fox, to try to make that a well-rounded trapping library, not just specifically coyote trapping, but if you're interested in trapping, that's the place that you can go to and watch the videos that you need when you need them on your time, and learn specifically how to get started trapping. So be sure that's also on the website at Coyote Trapping School. Be sure to check that out, and I appreciate y'all following along. I appreciate the support, and I hope y'all are killing it on the trap line. Good luck this season.